Hello and welcome to this video where I will demonstrate how to set up iBase 921 to work with Esri's ArcGIS Pro 3.1 and also look at some of the features available with iBase and ArcGIS Pro. To begin with, ensure that ArcGIS Pro has been installed and you can successfully start the program and log into your Esri account. ArcGIS Pro should be installed before installing iBase to ensure that the iBase installer can update ArcGIS Pro to work with iBase. I have started ArcGIS Pro and loaded a map to ensure it is correctly installed and licensed. I can close it down again for now. Now, from the iBase 921 installation media, run the setup file to install iBase. To install any of the iBase GIS interfaces, it is necessary to do a custom installation. If you have already installed iBase, then you can rerun the installer to get to the custom installation menu. However, you must be sure that the original iBase installation took place after ArcGIS Pro was installed. If not, you will need to uninstall and reinstall iBase once ArcGIS Pro has been installed. From the Extended Features section, expand the GIS Interfaces option and select the ArcGIS feature for installation. Now complete the installation or update of iBase, which will take a few minutes. For ArcGIS Pro, it is also necessary to install another separate application in addition to the iBase GIS interfaces. From the iBase installation media, you should have an i2 iBase ArcGIS Pro add-in folder. You may need to download the compressed file for this from your i2 software download area first. Run the setup file to install the ArcGIS Pro add-in. There are no installation options for the add-in and it will install quickly. I will now start iBase and open the user guide database. I'm using the user guide as it has some example data that I can use to demonstrate the integration between iBase and ArcGIS Pro. You will of course be using your own database to work with ArcGIS. Once iBase has been started and I've logged in, I now need to set up a mapping configuration to set up the integration between iBase and ArcGIS Pro. Here I'm going to create a new configuration, but you can of course modify an existing configuration and choosing the appropriate mapping application from the menu. From the Mapping Application drop-down, I've selected Esri ArcGIS Pro 3.1. I can then choose other settings I wish to use, such as displaying labels on a map for iBase data. As this is a new mapping configuration, I also need to set up the entities I wish to send to a map. For the address entity, I select the latitude and longitude fields to represent the X and Y coordinate values. For the person entities, I will configure the coordinates to be taken from the connected address entities, as the people in this database don't have coordinate properties, but are often connected to locations which do have coordinates. Finally, I will set up the crime entities in the same way as the address entities. Once the mapping configuration has been saved, I can then send some iBase data to ArcGIS Pro to make sure it's working. I will start by sending some address records to ArcGIS Pro. After selecting all the records, I use the right-click menu to choose Mapping and then Add to Map. From the list of available mapping configurations, I select the ArcGIS Pro configuration I have just set up. iBase will now start ArcGIS and will then send the selected data. Once that data is loaded, I can then choose a base map to underlay the iBase data so I can see where these addresses are located on the map. Once the iBase data is on a map, we can interact with iBase from within ArcGIS. I will use the Selection tool to select some of the addresses on the map. From the iBase menu on the taskbar, I can then select the Show option. If I return to the iBase window, we can see those selected records as a list in iBase. Let's do a different selection now, using the Lasso feature to select addresses that fall within the Washington Beltway. From the iBase menu, this time I select Add to Set. When I return to iBase, the Add to Set dialog is open. I can give the set a name, Inside Beltway for example. If I then open that set, we can see it contains the records I selected using the Selection tool. Alternatively, with the record still selected on the map, I can choose to add to chart or expand to send the data to an Analyst Notebook chart. iBase will then start Analyst Notebook if it's not already running and send the selected data to a chart. And because I use the expand option, it will expand to include any connected entities. Let's return to iBase and send some different data to ArcGIS Pro. For my example, I'm going to send all of the crime entities to a map. Switching to ArcGIS Pro, it asks me whether I want to add new data to an existing layer or create a new one. Because it's different information, I will create a new layer. Now that the crime data is on the map, I will switch off the address layer so it's no longer visible, and then zoom in on the crime data. Let's use the iBase Density Grid tool to get a simple view of the possible hotspots for crime in this data. First, I draw a bounding box around the data. Then from the menu, I can choose the opacity of the overlay, from transparent to opaque. Select a color range to represent the different densities, and then choose the number of classes or ranges to group the data into. Now on our map, we can easily see an area with greater density of crimes, in this case colored dark blue. Using the Explore tool, I can see there are 28 crimes that fall within that square. I will now return to iBase and add some additional data on the map. In this example, just a single crime. I will add it to a new layer and turn off the other layers. We will now use the iBase tools in ArcGIS Pro to create a spatial query over the iBase database. After selecting the iBase Query tool from the iBase menu, I draw a box that incorporates the area of interest. In this case, an area 6 blocks by 8 blocks approximately. In iBase, I'm now in the iBase Query Creation dialog, where I can give the newly created query a name. If I then view the query, I can see the conditions set up for the maximum and minimum values of the coordinates. Running the query will return the results that fall within that area. This time, when I send this data to the map, I will choose to add them to the existing topmost layer. We can now see the 79 crimes in the defined area. In ArcGIS Pro, you can of course choose how the entities are represented, overriding the iBase icon. Here I will change the symbol to a handcuff from the ArcGIS Pro symbol palette. To return to the original representation, I can use the Reset Entity Symbols tool to revert back to the original iBase icon. So in summary, we've looked at how to install the iBase GIS interfaces to work with Esri's ArcGIS Pro, how to set up the mapping configuration in iBase, and lastly how to work with iBase data within ArcGIS Pro. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video has been helpful.